Welcome to Be the Messenger podcast. I'm your host, B. Chad, the place where we have courageous hearts, conversations around the intersection of healing and justice. Today, I'd like to welcome one of my true homies, one of my true friends and colleagues. I'm fortunate to have this relationship with this scholar, with this father, with this man, Dr. Brandon Jones, who I'm proudly to announce as the first Black president of the world's largest association in the Earth and Space Sciences. Um, Prez is now, as I refer to him lovingly, he is now a consultant in his own space and in the entrepreneur world, something we would get a chance to expand on later. But he's also the former program director for National Science Foundation, leading the charge in the education and broadening participation space. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Brandon Jones.
Man, it is a pleasure to be here. This has been a long time coming.
Long time. We've been
Just
going
a long time.
meeting
Yeah,
every week, meeting at associations and conferences, and talk about doing. And
yeah.
that's on me, audience. That's on me. That's on me.
Well, I'm not gonna let you take the whole rap, but we're here now. We're here
No
now.
doubt.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I want to jump right in. I want to talk about this degree. To some spaces, it's a fantasy. It's a lot of
Mm.
dreams focused around getting terminal degrees, especially in the Black community and people that have been marginalized. So let's talk about earning this degree that says we are part of a 2% of the world that have these terminal degrees. Why and when spark your interest in going to get a doctorate?
Wow. I want to put a pin in the term terminal
Mm,
and put that in the parking lot because how do you evolve if you're at the end of something? If
mm.
that's what you're being told, and of course, I'm thinking of in the healthcare sector. If something's terminal, that ain't good. So let's can we put a pin in that? Let me come back to answer your question.
Nice,
Man,
nice.
I grew up in a landlocked state in Ohio, and my grandparents used to take me fishing all the time around there. So I've been a water baby for a long time, but I would come back home. Back in the day when you and I were younger, wasn't no streaming and all that. There were just TV shows and a handful of channels, right? But some of my favorite shows were the nature shows like Wild Kingdom and Jacques Cousteau, et cetera. So the coupling of being out in nature and then being exposed through TV programming, the rest of the world as it related to nature and science and all of that. I was like, oh, wow, I'd love to do that. I'd love to, I like the water, I like to fish, but I would love to scuba one day. I'd love to, snorkel in these wonderful places, et cetera. So that connection got sparked early about wanting to be an oceanographer.
Mm. Interesting.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Let's expand that a little
Yeah.
bit on the
Mm-hmm.
vision. Information gets distorted. Information gets used as propaganda. Sometimes we've heard the television being referred to as the idiot box. And education, there's been a number of scholars that have been very critical about television raising our babies. And but to hear you say that you found solace and you found info, and as well as connection to a television program, why do you think that has such a powerful impact on you and your hope and belief and your dreams, you investing and trusting some of these television?
Wow, that is I hadn't thought a lot about that part of my journey. Now that I'm sitting with it, I'm thinking about television programming and content 50 years ago versus today. Even streaming platforms aside, it just people still have cable and or satellite and things of that nature. And coming out of the 60s into the 70s, the kind of content that was showing up on television for children was, I think, obviously it was a little different than what we have now, but it was education based. So Sesame Street started in 69, so from Sesame Street to Electric Company and Mr. Rogers and all of those shows. And then, like I mentioned, the nature shows, you had Wild Kingdom and all these others, Discover before it was what it is. Hearing some feedback. That, I think that because the content was more substantial, it was education focused, the content for children. Even you had the after school specials that would come on in between, the different shows. I mean, it was about education. That even the commercials. This is your brain on drugs. They'd crack the eggs, so it was this. Okay, the children, we want to get content to them. We want to help them learn. Sesame Street was, when you're talking about diversity. Man, look, I had the biggest crush on Maria. I ain't know nothing about Puerto Rico when I was 7. You know what I mean? So, but
Right.
so it, fortunately, I think growing up in that time, whereas Gen X and our parents are, generally speaking, in that generational categorization, we're latchkey kids and being at home by ourselves a lot and having to do for ourselves, and the TV being on, but the content wasn't, it wasn't racy. It wasn't degrading. I mean, some of the worst shows that were on was like Dallas, and we want to know who shot JR and stuff like that, but it's not like it is now.
Right.
So the timing is, that's something I had to think more about, because no one asked to be born. And I didn't ask to be born in the late 60s and grow up in the 70s. And my daughter didn't ask to be born in the middle of the 2000s. So, society just, it evolves as well. So
I can concur that a number of my colleagues, from undergrad, we used to have these conversations about sitting in front of the television at 7 and what Sesame Street was to us as well. Um, so just a little bit more on that media. It makes me think of a word, accountability. The systems, right? Like media has a great influence on all of us. You said it contemporarily now. Do you think that same responsibility that you and I grew up in is being introduced and influenced? Because it's still information, right? It's still a form of education, but it's about what type of information and education is being presented by the media. How do you think that is impacting the young generation now?
I think I would. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I I think I would say information. Um, so there are different buckets, different sources, and there always has been. And I think there's still, I know there's still quality information in all the noise. There's still quality sources. Um, they're not, and I guess I'm philosophically speaking, or and anecdotally speaking, because I haven't done any research on this, but the channels or the stations or the sources or the platforms or the creators or whomever that are giving the quality information, they don't get to see the light. When
Mm.
I say light, I mean they don't get the exposure.
Yeah.
They're not promoted. The machine is not going to elevate them. So then the onus is on individuals to go digging for what is real. And then how do you evaluate what is real in all the noise now?
Mm.
I know the conversations that you and I have had, I've learned so much just listening to you and how to apply certain lenses to comments or material or a meme or a post or something to like really critically look at it.
Right.
Like, okay, this is the critical thinking, critical, where is that in the education system now? And so if you have a couple of generations of maybe a couple of generations that haven't struggled with that, not in a bad way, but just have to learn how to think critically and how question what you're reading and not just consuming it like, okay, this is the truth with all the disinformation and misinformation out there, then yeah, it's a different world nowadays. But then the onus is on, I don't know if it's parents or colleagues, or you find quality organizations or entities, or your church, or or someone or something to help you filter through the noise to get to what's real and what's true
Yes.
for the
Yes.
babies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have talked about, thank you for acknowledging, sharing some of our conversations is, I think about education as informal and formal education. And
Mm.
one of the quotes that I use often in my work is that they both carry the same weight and they both have the same value. And I introduced you with the pin point of terminal degree, and you expanding that to to healthcare and an informal media system of influence in your education, that had an impact on you going to get the degree. Can we go back to what those two different educations and terminal meant to you while earning the PhD?
Mm. Yeah, I'll use this example, which is the one of the bridges in my journey from undergrad to my first foray into grad school, is the prime example for me, that highlights the difference between formal and informal education. So I went to an HBCU for undergrad, and the Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. So 4 years of HBCU culture, not just the academics and not just the study and the in the library for hours and all that, but the entire culture, from professors to social to dorm life to the grades to the arts to the sports, the whole culture. When you step on campus, and the professors assume that you're brilliant
Mm,
and work with you at that level to start.
mm.
It the, so you have 4 years. I have 4 years of that, and then I went to a PWI for grad school, and the connection to it was all academic, all grades, all lab. The assumptions. It's almost like boot camp now that I'm thinking about it. Like, uh, not going to say any particular professor at the institution I went to, but academia as a whole, I would think this view that undergrads or students, early career scholars, need to be poured into and need to be shaped and need to be molded in it, and not accepting them where they are with the gifts that they bring,
Mm,
that they already are bringing something
mm,
to the program or the lab or the institution or whatever. Um, and so all the informal education that I got at Lincoln, in addition to the formal and the academics, prepared me for this vacuum that I walked into. And I won't call it that's a rough word. It wasn't a culture-less place. It was just a completely different culture, and it felt vacuous to me.
right.
So like, there's nothing for me to connect to here. Um, and fortunately, I was only like an hour and a half away from like Philly or DC or whatever. So on the weekends, I was going to the filling stations, to the EV charging stations, I should say. Yeah, but I know there are so many, and I've talked to a lot of students over my course of my career, who have had to suffer in isolation.
Mm.
Some made it through, some didn't, some for different reasons. And when I say some didn't, not anything more than, maybe they left the program or they transferred schools or something like that, or switched majors and found something a little more beneficial and something, a track where they could be all of themselves
Mm.
versus getting chipped away at.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's a
Whew.
lot. Yeah.
It is. It is. It's that's what this space is for though. But I do think we should I want to expand upon that a little. Also as a scholar that attended PWI's audiences, predominantly white institutions, and HBCUs, as historically black colleges and universities. I attended PWI's my entire journey. And often we talk about this in graduate school is, where am I represented? And he talked about, you touched on how the faculty in your undergrad was a part of building your identity. What's that like when you step on uh, graduate school campus and disproportionate representation of black faculty members? What's that experience like not
Hmm.
being able to cultivate your identity in academia as a young black man at that time? What's that experience like?
Yeah, I might not be the best to answer this because I fortunately had an advisor, white advisor, who was out of step with most of his colleagues in the way that he approached um, uh, the training and the professoriate, his academic um, ac- um, um, research, etc. He was very focused on work-life balance before it was a thing. He was focused on sort of like giving back to society before it was a thing. But to answer your question, the way he ran his lab and the way that he showed up at work, and for me to be in his lab, uh, I realized that I was in a bubble because when I had to take other courses or I had to go like up to main campus, because I was at sort of like a satellite campus at a Marine College, and I would interact with the other professors, or I would have, whether it be kind of one-on-ones, homework kind of things, question, Q&A, or just in their class, etc. There was, I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to say it was cold, but it was very transactional. That's one of those words I learned in the last 15 years messing around with social scientists and such. But which is like, why didn't I know this word before? It was, I'm here to give you this information. I have the information. I'm the guru. I'm the master. You're the apprentice, and you sit and absorb. You drink it in. You consume. Um, yes, questions are allowed. That's kind of how it felt. And I didn't have the language then to describe what I was feeling, but I do now. So, um, but being able to have connections with some of the other students, and I was the only black student in the entire college.
Mm.
I was the only black person in the entire college, not just student, but faculty and support staff, maintenance. Didn't matter. I'll take that back. There was one other black person, and she was part of the maintenance staff
Wow.
in the entire college.
Wow.
So, and my first semester and a half, I was struggling,
Mm.
and I realized now that it was I, going through this. Do I really belong? That thing? I know that's a term that's been thrown around a lot lately, but I felt that thing. Struggling in class, I was on academic probation like that because I was just like, this is again, I'm coming out of 4 years of an HBCU experience and stepping into like hard stop there, no transition, no no pregame, no warm up, no training, just throw you in to this entirely different culture with the rigors and expectations of grad school performance, which and everything was easier for me in college. It was easy all the way, K-12 up through high school, college. It uh academically stuff was easy for me. I just understood it. So, and this is part of my problem, or what was part of my problem. My study skills were weak because I didn't really have to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when I got to grad school, I was like, oh, am I prepared? And now I'm looking at Lincoln like, did they prepare me? Am I prepared? Do I need to be here? All of these other students, they've had these prerequisite courses in undergrad. They've taken Lincoln didn't have a marine program. I wanted to study marine biology, and all they had was pre-med as the most advanced biology track. So I was in the pre-med program, but my advisor was he was a marine biologist, like a larval ecologist from Rutgers. So I was, again, now I keep saying again, and I'm fortunate and I'm all of this. And another thing we have to think about is how does the divine show up? Because statistically, like probabilities, there's absolutely no way these things kept lining up in my life
All right.
and it just be happenstance or circumstantial, but and there prop the probability there's no way that there
Right.
wasn't some orchestration, put it that way.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Um, I can concur and meet you with a number of the comments you made about what the experience like, the alienation, and um, feeling like you actually you don't represent yourself. You represent a race and a community of people.
Mm,
Come from the South. Brandon and I are both blue hens of the doctorate programs at the University of Delaware. And my experience was a little different. Um, there were no culturally professors that I connected with um, in my doctorate program at the university.
mm,
But what I did was I ran across the street to the Center for Black Culture and to the Black American Studies program. And I found a brother over there, Dr. Yasser Payne, who offered everything that we're talking about. Lincoln offered what we needed in the community for support, how to navigate doctorate programs as a Black man, putting me on publications, teaching me the game, how to do research without losing my identity. And I
mm,
think that's one of the topics of concern, and you and I have talked about this in the association meetings or after meetings as we look at the younger brothers and sisters coming up. Um, how did that impact your identity? As you say, you struggled some initially academically, but just as you being a Black man, how do you think that had an impact on you?
the struggle itself, or the
The
not having the resource like you had,
not having the resource. So do you
not
think
having the
that
resource.
that was because one of the things that I learned, and going, the ancestors that we are both and people. So I think I
Mm,
benefited from finding Yasser and also having some of my advisors that were white. I think I learned the thinking of the majority, the game on what it's like as a white man in academia, and what does that look like compared to what I learned from Yasser. Um, you know, both and people, right? Like I had a chance to get
yeah,
both sides.
yeah.
So I was just curious to see how you um, saw that experience by not having one, but having your white male mentor or advisor that was, put you on game?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And let me add to that part of the story so folks will know my whole graduate experience. I went to UD, got my master's, so it was 2.5 years. And then I went and taught high school in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is, for those who know, PG County in Maryland is mostly Black. And the school I taught at was a magnet school, high school, but it was probably 70% Black, but it was a mix. So I did that for 5 years. So I came from HBCU. I got thrown into this grad culture. The graduate school itself is foreign. The location is foreign. The people that are there, the culture is foreign. I finish, and I'm going to talk about what I think happened that really got me on my feet during my master's. But finished my master's, and then I go teach high school in a predominantly Black county in a state that's pretty progressive, et cetera, and absorb that kind of experience back then, and then go back to grad school to work on my PhD, working with the same advisor, but a little older, as the song said, a little older, a little wiser. And so my approach going into my PhD program was like, I could tell the first week or two that I was back on campus, and a lot of the professors that were there during my master's were still there and such, but they just looked smaller. I don't know what happens in your mind. They just, and no, no diss to any of them. They were experts in all their fields, and most were really great professors, et cetera. But I had changed, like, oh, and I was ready, like no struggle. And it was the difference between my master's matriculation and my PhD matriculation was, I think, control. I was in control in my PhD matriculation. I didn't know enough during my master's time, or even had the language or the tools to show up in a way internally to realize that I had agency, that I had autonomy, that I could speak up for myself, et cetera. I was just kind of going along. And again, my professor, again, same professor, I think because he was so intentional about academia and research and science not being the center of his world, being important, but just as an individual, as a human, that it was not the center of his. We used to have, he and I would have these like just real talks, and I remember him saying one time, he said, "My colleagues here, they're driven by something, and I don't know what it is." He said, "I can't figure it out." He said, and I mean, he was publishing, and he had research dollars, and he had a vibrant lab and all of that, but he just was wired different. And the types of students that I think that he recruited, now that I think about it, and a lot of us are still in touch, even to this day, he recruited folks that were both and, not just one, not just that, but we were both and, even though we're, some were Black, or I was Black and everyone else was white. But I want to go back to that control thing. I felt more in control of my career, of decision making, when it came to just even something as small as the courses I wanted to take, and where I was headed, what I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do. I knew for a fact when I came back from my PhD, I did not want to be an academic. I was probably a month into my PhD, and I was like, ain't no way. They're spending 80% of the time either writing a paper or reviewing or writing trying to get some money,
Yeah.
writing grants. I was like, oh, there is no way. And they're on the hook. I mean, some of them had really big labs. They had grad students that they needed to support. They had postdocs and techs. And if they didn't bring no grant dollars in, you talking about people's livelihoods,
Pressure.
plus your research career. I was like, that's no. And they had to teach, all of those
Yes.
kinds of other responsibilities. So no.
Yes.
So I knew early. I didn't know that in my master's. I didn't know what I wanted to do with a degree. But when I came back for my PhD, I knew what I didn't want to do, which I think is just as important.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I hear a couple things here that I just want to, before we move on from the journey to get to the professional, is that you were older, right?
Mm-hmm.
But being older also brought you some lived experience. And we talk about in the academy how that lived experience gets limited around the value that it has in academia. And you and I talk about like we wouldn't be in these spaces if we didn't be able to connect to that educational value of the lived experience. It helped you to understand what you didn't want to do. I too went back to school as an older person in the doctorate program after, teaching at Benedict College and being an entrepreneur in another industry. But it gave me a different direction and focus. And you have mentored a number of different students through the association. What's your take on where we are now with a number of students? In my experience, they were going straight through. And there was a vast difference between the way I was approaching the program and the way they were approaching the program. Do you see that being a little challenge for the babies now, or something that you think is kind of, washed itself out?
No, it's definitely a challenge.
Yes.
One reason for the challenge, and this has probably been 25 years now, is that the market for academic positions has been flooded for some time. Um, this is another thing that my advisor said. He was like, and this was during my master's, so this was early 90s. And we were having one of those conversations, and he was like, I don't understand why everyone wants to, and I'm paraphrasing now because he didn't really say these words, but this was the meaning. He didn't understand why people wanted to create carbon copies of themselves
Mm.
to do the exact research that they were doing.
Deep.
So you have five students that you're training to do the exact research you're doing, but you're not leaving. They get their degrees, but you are still where you are, and the handful of people that do that research are still where they are. So where are these folks going to go? Are they now 20, 25 years ago, there might have been more institutions, more agencies, more organizations that were hiring these types of people. But as far as academia, the market's been flooded for a lot of time. Way more PhDs than there are slots in the academic environment.
Thanks.
Way more. So again, you go back a couple of decades and the research was starting to really show up, probably in the early 2000s, that for PhDs, especially in STEM, that academia was becoming a secondary career option. And now it definitely is. Non-academic careers for STEM majors with terminal degrees, they're the primary. Those are the primary tracks of career preparation. Non-academic, private sector, nonprofit, consulting, those kinds of things. And so, a lot of early career scientists that I've mentored over the years, and still even to this day, um, there is some struggle because some of them came late to the realization that they didn't have to stay in academia.
Mm-hmm.
And so they waited a little too late to start to think about and prepare for something other than being a professor. So, and given that political turmoil, at least in this country, centered around a whole lot of mess, but how it showed up in the defunding of lots of science,
Yes.
and not just related to the humanity portions, and we get into DEI and all that, but just science itself was clawed back, was funded.
Yeah.
NSF and NIH got hammered. Other science agencies got hammered last year, 2025. So it was just science in general, and that rippled out through the private sector, nonprofit, academia, obviously the federal government. So what did that mean for the training and the preparation, et cetera, of early career scientists who were at all stages, just coming in the middle, were assistant professors or worked at this organization that had to let 20% of their staff go or
Hmm.
something like that. So it's still struggling for a different reason. Still, and yeah. So some of them recently, and it's probably in the last 6 or 7 months that I've talked to, they're looking at finding jobs and options outside of the U.S. And I'm not the one to tell you to stay.
Yeah.
If you're looking for me to give you a reason to stay in the U.S., don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna tell you, you got to take care of you and any movement, any discipline, any sector is bigger than a geopolitical boundary.
All right. Yeah.
Science isn't gonna stop because the U.S. decided to step back from everything related to climate,
Right.
globally. So go somewhere where you can make a difference, where you can provide that expertise, where you can be part of the movement.
Right.
So yeah.
That's I think that's a compelling segue. And thank you for sharing. But it's time for us to go there, Prez.
Yeah,
It's
okay, where are we going? Take me.
we-
Let me take another sip.
get your sip on, brother. Get your sip on. We
Okay.
here now. I mean, we
Mhm.
here, and uh, President Obama got handed a mess. 2008, brother. You the first black president of this international Earth and Space organization, and you coming in a time exactly as you framed it, where resources are being cut, which impacts the people in the association that you are leading.
Mhm.
It impacts families, career trajectories, research, personal ability to publish or perish, which we know in research one institutions, that's what it's about. Um, how are you feeling? First of all, congratulations as being the first black. But brother,
Appreciate that, brother. Appreciate that.
this has um this has to be exactly what we say sometimes we get as being the first as black, as Jackie Robinson, what he had to endure as being the first black to integrate baseball and the shots that are taken just racially but the expectations are probably greater. Um, so I would like for you to share is what does that feel like being you in this global and socio-political climate of defunding and devaluing now?
Yeah, that's a heavy time. We here. We as
Here,
yeah, as Kevin Hart would say, we out here now.
we out here.
Um I have not first off, let me say the greats that have come before me in any sector, before us both,
Yeah.
whether it be association, sports, entertainment, business, politics, what they had to endure to be terraformers, to like break man, listen, we wouldn't be here, right? We wouldn't be here.
We would not.
We would not. The organization that I'm president of, American Geophysical Union, I'll shout it out. Over 100 years old, 106 years old, 1919 was when it first was formed. And so I think about how science has evolved over that century. And I think about who got to participate in that evolution in this country over that century. And even as inroads were being made, it's matter of fact, I'll tie it back to what you were saying, what you asked earlier about television content, earlier versus now. And that there's still good content and still good creators and still good sources. They're just not elevated. Well, I go to LinkedIn and I learn about Ernest Just, or I learn about Ray Erlinger Young, or I learn about, aside from the ones I got, like George Washington Carver, the same ones that were always given. You go somewhere and you learn more about the richness of the contribution to science from different cultures than the one that's being elevated all the time. And so all of those kinds of thoughts, I know they're just sitting in my mind because they pop up every now and then. They're kind of sitting wherever that box is in my brain, and it comes up like, okay. And the things I have to face aren't even racially motivated or anything. Certainly not internally. There have been some times with some members of the organization, and let me say this: the staff, on the staff side of the organization, listen, there's absolutely no way the organization could do what it's doing without the staff. They are
Right.
from every level quality, at least from my interactions. There have been some members, mostly academics, who have reacted in ways that I knew what it was, but I know they didn't know what it was.
Mm.
They've never had to engage
Right.
with a person of color who is at their level, or in this regard, above them.
No doubt.
Some, and even those that may be at institutions where the provost or the chancellor is a person of color, they're removed from them. If they're faculty, you don't interact with the chancellor that much. You don't interact with the VP for research that much. It's more about the chair, the head, or the dean, or what have you. But you come to the association, and what I'm finding more so in the association is that, I got to be careful how I say this. It seems as though, because the stakes are so low in the association, meaning there's no way there are ways for associations to enforce certain rules on members around ethics or things of that nature. But just general demeanor and behavior, well, how do we can't enforce it. They're paying dues to be a member of the organization. So there have been some times when members have shown up in a way, and I'm like, and I see it. So, and I think that's a helpful thing for me, because I already know what it is. I can name it. And even if I think I'm not naming it correctly, letting it play out, then it gives me the confidence that, yeah, I named it right.
Mm.
They never had to experience this. So if it's a one-off because I'm built a certain way, I'm like, okay, whatever. But if there's a pattern, then I've had to address some folks. Like, and I was careful not to make any accusations, because obviously I didn't have any data to prove that, but address them where they were with that particular topic, and address the issue and how they're presenting it, but also providing some education, right?
Mm.
So it's both, let me correct you, because that's not what this is, and here's why that's not what this is. But let me offer you another perspective as a fellow member, because what you're saying might be good for 2% of the membership, but how in the United States, but what about the member in Sri Lanka who's facing some other issue? Why is that important to them? So as president, let me share with you that I'm president of the entire organization, not just your specific section or your specific discipline or your institution or organization that you might think, because you live in a bubble, is the most important thing. Yeah. So but that's been a struggle. That's been a struggle because given what's going on now, there are times I'm like, can this hurry up and be over? Especially with the this year so far, we're 3 months in, right? It's April.
Yeah.
It's been a little, I think we found our footing and we found some success, certainly in the legal and policy world. The organizations leaned into that side of things to support science, defend scientists, defend the federal workspace as far as workforce, scientists mainly, and still advocate for science, but also give tools and trainings and such to our members so that they can feel like they have agency wherever they are, so they can show up in different ways that they've never done before. So we found our footing now. Last year, this time, like last March 2025 or April 2025, if you can remember, brother, it was crazy.
Yeah, I do remember.
It was crazy. And we, the royal we of the organization, the board and the staff, and I congratulate them for their courage. We just made a decision that if we're going to go down, we're going down swinging. We're not an academic institution, so it doesn't appear that we were on the administration's radar. We're not a federal agency, so we certainly weren't on the radar. So we're a professional society. We're an association that's in the kind of the in-betweens. So we need to show up and stand up, and this is our chance to do that. And I'll tell you this, and we'll see where the rest of the conversation goes. There have been some benefits for us showing courage early last year.
Yeah.
There have been benefits. Other organizations, other entities, et cetera, have noticed that, oh, wow, okay, AGU they're not backing away. They're not doing, and we have not been targeted. So we're just going to keep doing it. Did I have that on my list for my legacy? Heck no. Man, if I could show you the list of stuff from 3 years ago when I found out that I was president-elect and then I was going to be president, man, I started making it, I'd love to do this and introduce that and so on and so forth. And then that November 24 happened. I'm like, man, there went all my stuff out the window.
All right.
All stuff. Yeah.
Prayers. I don't want the audience to simplistically glaze over what methodology and framework you just gave us. Y'all, I really need for you to understand what a messenger is in real time. He introduced us to the things that have been going well, and then he talked about some of those instances where he was given an opportunity to show if he was committed to what he really said he wanted to be in. He said, not only does he hold them accountable, but he takes the responsibility to teach them in transformation in real time. That's not that easy. That's not that easy. That is what healing is about. That is exactly what your truth is, your medicine is about. That's what being a messenger is about. He's addressing structural inequality in that informal educational space one by one when those instances show up. Yeah. I want to know if you are aware that being in those spaces, in those PWIs, how they are training grounds to understand how the majority thinks, and when these situations occur, how you are in a powerful position to de-escalate and now teach and train. When we talk about this in trainings and workshops, we often hear from our community, Dr. Starks, I hear you, but why is it my responsibility to teach them? I need you, if you can, Prez, just to share with them a little bit how maybe how you see that is not uh, as as a responsibility, but also as an opportunity to live as you climb. If you can share a little bit on that point specifically.
On the
When they do
education
it,
in real time.
you respond. You know, the attitude is like, I need to address this. I'm not avoiding it. I'm gonna confront it, and then I'm gonna put them on game because I'm here in this position to teach them the error of their ways, but also how to correct it.
Yeah. That I think that's an ancestral weight.
Mm.
Um, if you go back through history, you think about, and we talked about earlier, the ones that had to terraform the first in whatever it was they were doing. Um, you read their books, you read the articles about them, and you observe how they held themselves, but also the comments that they made. They or the quotes, or how they showed up in an interview, or whatever. And so a lot of that, I think, flows at least through me. And even though I may not, it comes out, even though I may not know it's coming out in those times. You know, the ancestors are showing up. If I need, you know, not that I go calling on them, but they all, Uncle James Baldwin might show up, and I had to be a little bit more
Be there, brother.
fiery.
Yes,
I
sir.
might need to be a little bit more fiery than at times when Auntie Maya shows up.
Mm. Mm.
And so they show up differently. And they always seem to show up for me in alignment with my personality. And I've
Mm.
seen them show up in same ancestors show up in other people with their personalities, but the alignment is there. It's like, this is, again, we could have a whole nother conversation on like the divine and how that really shapes who we are. But one of a living ancestor, to get to your question, who I draw on often, the acronym of his name stands for knowledge reigns supreme over nearly
All right.
everyone.
All right. All right, KRS.
And KRS. And so my favorite song of his entire library is My Philosophy,
Yes.
because it starts with, "Are you a philosopher?"
Yes.
You're right. And yes. In about 4 seconds, a teacher is about to speak. Come on.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. That is it. And
yeah.
4 seconds. I got 4 seconds to get myself together.
Yeah.
I really hear what you're saying, but are you really saying what you're saying? That this is the hypothetical person or the people that I've had to address, or are you trying to see where I am?
Mm.
And it could be all of those, could be a combination, or you could just have a genuine question because you don't understand. You don't understand, you need to be educated. You're trying to test me, you need to be educated.
Mm.
You don't know about the system, you need to be educated. It's
Mm.
all an educational opportunity.
Yes.
But I got to swallow real hard because I don't have a shiesty on outside the club and you step to me. I'm
Mm.
representing 60-something thousand people. I'm the
Mm.
head, the face of an organization that has leaned in to suing the federal government and doing all kinds of things. So I can't just be me. That's why I got to go to homecoming or CIAA so I can go be me.
All right. All right.
and, get charged up so I can come back and do what I need to do. But it's about education. It's about education. So I draw on my ancestors living in past, and that definitely includes family, you know, and obviously my spiritual background as well. So the both and whatever we could add to that, if you're not whole in yourself, I don't know how you really show up properly in those situations.
Yes. Yes. You nail on the head. And I think that's something you know, I'm in the social science world as you know, and criminology, criminal justice to be exact. And some of that village and community of that
That's
informal
it.
teaching and messages,
That's
um,
it.
I think we lost some of that. You know,
Mm,
we can see our young men as not worthy of that. Excuse me, son. Do you realize that this decision you're making now may be putting you down a journey of empowering systems that may not be in your favor?
mm,
And I think even in casual conversations, I hear people with the quote is, "I'm not gonna own that. I'm not gonna own that." And it's very refreshing to know that we have you. With 60,000 people's spirit and mindsets of being influenced by the framework and purpose and calling that you represent, that we know people are going to show up that have been influenced by this media, as we started off this conversation, that may be misinformed by the cultures that have cultivated their mindset.
mm.
And for you to be there
Yeah.
to have that spirit and have that sponge like um, soul to be able to absorb that punch and then to come back and wring that water out in form of education to direct them with a different approach, I think is one of the most powerful things that we could do as humans. So,
Mm.
brother, we appreciate that you are there. We are grateful that you are there.
Yeah.
Um, on this podcast, we want this to be a call to action for
Yeah.
all of us. And this socio-political climate now, from where I'm sitting, this is what we need more of.
Mm.
This isn't a time to
Agreed.
retreat and say, I'm going to hold my pearls and keep my information or my wherewithal to know which way we should be going. It's time to grab the microphone and be messengers and amplify our voices so we can redirect society in a much more humane way. So I really wanted to
Agreed.
thank you for being able to approach that and let us know, man, all of us. And it don't take being the president of AGU. It don't take PhDs. It take an opportunity to just right the
Mhm.
ship, to be able to share the resources that we know we've been able to accumulate along life's journey. So thank you,
Yeah.
Prez.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, brother.
No, my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me, having me on, and the work that you're doing, um, especially holding space for these kind of conversations is, like you said, I agree with you 1,000%. Way more important than now. People are on social media, but they're more alone and lonely than ever before. So, having conversations in real time and meeting, gathering in real time are key. This is like the extension of the barbershop to me.
Totally. And
Yeah.
and it, you know, you'll be back.
Okay. Let
you
me
you
know. Let me know.
back.
Let me
And
know.
I think that inside conversation about the social media is it's there's it's twofold, just like most things. But I'm excited when I hear the baby say, "I'm gonna be outside. I'm outside. I'm outside."
Mm, yes.
And that
Yes.
socialization for those lived experiences is kind of what we're talking about with the majority of not having access. We still
Yep.
back to access and resources, right? Like you ever been across the street? Then how you know how to engage with the culture across the street.
That's it.
And I think that is huge for us right now where we have people in positions of leadership that cannot connect to the people that live across the street from them because
Mm,
they won't walk across the street to get that informal education.
mm,
And we can see
mm,
how those decisions of the people in leadership is damaging the people and hurting the country
Yeah.
that live across the street.
Yeah.
We got an
100%.
opportunity to raise our voices and continue community, village, keep going across the street. He shared this journey of being in predominantly white spaces and learning and advising and making it about the science. But that journey positioned him to be able to garner 60,000 spirits, lives, and souls in direct science with diverse populations internationally. And it's an honor, brother. It's an honor to watch you move. I think my quote for you was when I had the pleasure of being in AGU spaces, that you the only black man I know that's been, that nobody dislikes that I ever talked to or said that about. And that's a compliment, and, that's a sincerity thing. I'm an ethnographer. I observe how the he walks around and moves and shakes hands and kiss babies and how he goes to heal and reflect and go to HBCU homecomings just to be refueled. And our folks need to understand that that's what it takes to be able to lead these associations, organizations, and companies with high ethical values and principles. And brother, as a messenger, we need more like you. So it's an honor, no doubt.
I appreciate that, and not more to add because I'm a reflection of, as I mentioned, my ancestors, but I'm also a reflection of my contemporaries, and you are certainly you at the top of the list, and so I carry a lot of your wisdom with me. Like how would B Chaz show up right now, And so I appreciate you and all that you're doing. So let me know the next one. I'm excited about what you're doing. We really need to get the message out.
No doubt. I do want to add this brother to start his own consulting firm. So this platform is always about lifting as we climb, entrepreneur spirit, and how we can show up to support each other in our village and our community. As we say here at Be the Messenger, healing first, justice always, reform forever. If anything resonated with you in these conversations, please sit and reflect upon them and allow them organically to touch your spirit and your soul. We have intentional soul sessions here, and it's about real conversations at the intersection of healing and justice. Until we meet again, in solidarity, y'all be safe out there. Peace.